So now, after this big sell-off, 9 out of all 11 S&P 500 sectors are negative for the year, if you add in the losses. One bright spot has been healthcare, the best performer of the year, up 5%, but got hit hard today.
It did. Insurance stocks could come under pressure as well after a Texas judge ruled that the Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional. Joining us now, Ipsita Smolinski, healthcare analyst at Capitol Street, and Michael Barnes, former policy advisor at the White House Office of Drug Policy under George W. Bush. Good afternoon to you both. If I start with you, Michael, what do you make of this ruling by the Texas judge?
I think the ruling is deeply flawed and it's likely to be overturned. I mean, the judge tried to attribute intent to Congress that didn't exist, and it's a really easy analysis that he should have conducted. There's a before and after. We know that in July 2017, 2 U.S. senators made it an important vote not to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And then a few months later, in December 2017, they voted for the tax bill that included a zeroing out of the tax penalty under the Affordable Care Act for not buying insurance, and they intended to sever that tax penalty from the rest of the ACA and leave it in place. The judge has said that they somehow intended to eliminate the entire law through that process and is saying that the entire law is unconstitutional. The impacts of that, if it were to move forward, would be horrific on consumers, states, and as you mentioned, certain industries, including the pharmaceutical industry and in some cases the insurance industry.
So, Ipsita, we did see a market reaction, especially from the insurers. What's the big fear?
Well, look, the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. It celebrates its 9th birthday in March. It's been regulated. It's been implemented. And I think the issue is that while we had a feeling it would be a detrimental ruling, people weren't expecting it, especially not at 8:30 on a Friday night. I wanted to add, as far as the ruling goes, that it's still in the district court's hands. And what that means is that Rita O'Connor only issued a declaratory judgment on 1 count. There's 4 other counts, so there's no way to appeal it yet. And so I think there's going to be a lot of action, headlines. We've got Senator Grassley saying that he's going to hold hearings on this issue, pre-existing conditions. But reality is this law, we think, is pretty entrenched. We think that the appellate court, which is very conservative, by the way, 2/3 Republican, may just want to skip the issue altogether and rule on standing. And certainly Chief Justice Roberts does not want to revisit the Affordable Care Act yet again.
Michael, clearly it's highly unlikely in your view that this would be ruled unconstitutional. If it was, how significant would the impact be, and which areas in particular would be hit the hardest?
Well, it would be chaotic for consumers, especially in the midst of 2 crises, suicide crisis as well as an opioid overdose epidemic in the United States. People who have coverage for pre-existing conditions, but also behavioral health through the exchanges and the Affordable Care Act's requirements, they wouldn't necessarily have coverage at that point. And insurance then would revert back to the prior discount plan type of market where there is no meaningful coverage for people when they need it. And it's impossible for some people even to get in to the market to buy health insurance. And so states would be left with trying somehow to fix that. And those blue states that wanted to replicate the ACA would have a very, very difficult time with their budgets, as well as creating sort of middle ground systems for this Medicaid expansion population that otherwise would disappear and have no coverage if this law were to be deemed unconstitutional.
So you clearly both are skeptical, Ipsita. Does that mean you would tell people to buy the insurers and the hospitals that got hit on this headline?
I think that as far as the insurer goes, there are obviously multiple lines of business, books of business. You've got the commercial book of business, Medicare Advantage, which is actually pretty healthy. So I think that, yeah, it could be an opportunity for certain select insurers, maybe not all of them. And then on the hospital side, you know, Congress is incremental. There's going to be no repeal and replace, no Medicare for all. I think for the most part, I'm in agreement with Michael, but the law will be here to stay, and there are opportunities for both insurers and hospitals from here on out.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Ipsita Smolinski and Michael Barnes.